Going live now. What we're gonna do here is talk about the grand handling sign of distress of a master mason. So it's a reiteration of something I've already talked about in the past, but it's good to revisit the lessons and stuff like that. Um, Give me a second. Something's wrong. The ice cream truck is rolling. Get it. All right, whatever. Anyway, though, long story short, let's get into this. So, the grand handling sign of distress of a master mason. I'm going to revisit this. I've talked about this in the past. With the grand handling sign of distress of a master mason and mainstream masonry, people will talk about using this sign to like get help and stuff like that. But to get straight to the point, it's a sign that consists of three motions. When you're dealing with Freemasonry, there's all of our signs, like which are bodily gestures, it deals with body language. So with the grand handling sign of distress of a master mason, I was reading something recently, I think on Reddit or something like that, and different types of forums, and as well as TikTok. And conspiracy theorists, they'll talk about the grand handling sign of distress of a mason as they've read it from a book, like let's say Duncan's Monitor. I don't know if you know what Duncan's Monitor is, but if I was on a laptop, which I got the laptop here, but whatever, if I was on a laptop, I could kind of show you. There's a book that's called Duncan's Monitor of Freemasonry, which is like a book from the late 1800s that is supposed to expose the rituals of Freemasonry up with the 3 degrees and certain side degrees. So with these different things I was watching, like on Reddit, different internet forums, they'll laugh at the conspiracy theorists because the conspiracy theorists will use things from this book called Duncan's Monitor of Freemasonry, and they'll like the conspiracy theorists to try to use the images from that book and compare it to like stuff that you would see on the Super Bowl or music videos and stuff like that, and try to make it like Freemasonry, some type of big conspiracy. But anyway, some Masons, when they talk about the stuff that non-Masons post from Duncan's Ritual Monitor, some Masons are try to downplay like it's not exactly correct. But if we're being honest, I'm a Mason, people that are Masons know, Duncan's Monitor is very accurate. We don't have to lie about it. It's very accurate in terms of like the rituals of Freemasonry. It's very accurate. The thing is that Freemasonry is not identical everywhere throughout the world. It's not. It's very similar. Like if you're in New York, or if you're in Texas, or if you're in Scotland, if you're in France, Masonry is very similar. it's not identical everywhere. So we don't have to play those games. So anyway, with the grand healing sign of distress, if you read Duncan's Monitor, you'll see an image that's like this. And you can look it up for yourself. The grand healing sign of distress in Masonry is supposed to be a sign that you use to show to get Masons to help you if you're in distress. So in the book, it will have an image like this, right? The image will look like this, just like this. But that's not how you show. That's not how you show the grand healing sign of distress in Freemasonry. It's really not. That's not a lie. Like I said, if you read Duncan's Ritual, if you ever get that book, Duncan's Monitor or whatever, Ritual and Monitor, Freemasonry, the grand healing sign of distress, it'll have like a character drawn out doing this. It's partially right, but it's not. It's not, definitely not all the way right. So don't think Masons are lying to you when they say like that's not it. It's not it. But at the same time, a Mason is not supposed to show you what the grand healing sign of distress is fully. I won't either. So, but I'll give you insight. If you're smart enough, you can figure it out. Like these different signs we do, like gestures, it's not a big deal. Like certain gestures we do in Freemasonry, like certain, bodily gestures, are acceptable for us to give to the public. Like, for example, we might do this, which is, in my jurisdiction, we call this the sign of a Mason. Certain jurisdictions call that the sign of fidelity. That's public. It's not something that is a secret. It's like, oh, if I see a Mason in the public, I'll do this. It's a square formation at the heart. That's not a secret. But certain stuff we do, like obviously certain handshakes, quote unquote, we call them touches in my jurisdiction, or grips. It's secret. Even if certain people were Masons and then they leave and they reveal it, that's up to them if they do that. They broke their oath. But so I won't do that. But anyway, the point I'm making is we're talking about the grand healing sign of distress. So you'll see, like in Duncan's Monitor, which is a famous book, the character, it'll be a drawing with a guy like this. So I remember seeing some recently on TikTok and other social media outlets where they were talking about people being in the Super Bowl doing this. Like, people, I don't know, whatever. So they were saying, yo, they're doing the grand healing sign of distress of Freemasonry for a Master Mason. And then certain Masons allegedly were like, no, these people are dumb, they're idiots. These people are not really idiots. They're kind of on the right track to a degree, but the Masons are not lying to you when they say this is not the grand healing sign of distress. It's not. It's a part of it, but it's not the whole thing. The grand healing sign of distress has 3 motions to it. So this is particularly for Freemasons and other people that are interested in Freemasonry. I'm not going to show you the whole sign because I cannot do that as a Mason. But this part is correct to a degree. But there's 3 motions to the sign, not just this. There's 3 motions. So when you look at this, I'll explain it esoterically. When you see this, which this is the main motion, it's a part of it. In America and in England, it's not like that. England has a totally different, usually, grand healing sign of distress. But in America and in other countries too, this motion is typically the main motion of the grand healing sign of distress. Now, with this being the main motion, that represents surrender and body language. In Freemasonry, for sure, the grand healing sign of distress is not about just doing a sign in public and then getting somebody to help you. It's not about that. Freemasonry is very spiritual. Freemasonry is a mystical path. So this main motion represents surrender. So if you come into Freemasonry and you learn these different bodily postures, they're body language postures. They're meant to be tools to help your mind get into a certain state of consciousness. So this particular main motion represents surrender. So in Masonry, when we teach that, oh, this is the grand handling sign of distress of a master Mason, it's meant to teach you that if you surrender to the universe mentally, not by just doing the posture, if you could bring your mind to a state of surrender to the universe, you will find that you will receive relief from the universe. This is true. Everybody's not going to understand this. You will have to be a mystic to understand it. So this is, again, the main part of the grand handling sign of distress, but it's a 3-motion sign. So I can't say the other 3 motions, but what I could say is this, and you'll figure it out, even if you're not a Mason. Because again, Masonry is Masonry, if you've ever listened to my lectures, Freemasonry is a universal path. It's a universal spiritual path. It's not, we're not trying to hide anything from people, but we don't want to make our knowledge accessible to common people, if that makes sense. So with the 3-motion part of the grand handling sign of distress, I'll just give like an allusion to it, meaning a hint. Even if you're not a Mason, you'll figure it out. So this is the best way I could explain it. A Mason will understand it. So let me put it this way. In Freemasonry, we use different analogies, right? Like different symbols, different parables. Like if you read the Bible, for example, which is a symbol of Freemasonry for sure, you see that the character Jesus says in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the character Jesus say, I speak everything to my inner circle in the clearly, but to the public, those who are on the outside, I speak to them in a parable, meaning in a cryptic, indirect way, so they don't understand what I'm saying. This is in the Bible if you read it. I don't want to quote the scriptures, but I'm telling you what the Gospels say. So Masonry is like that. So with the 3 motions of the grand handling sign of distress, to understand it, you will have to understand the symbology of agriculture. That's the best way I could put it. Agriculture or farming or gardening, right? Because the Bible uses that. If you study the Bible, you see that even from the beginning of Genesis, it talks about the Garden of Eden. And if you study the New Testament, you see just analogies that talk about the husbandman putting the sickle into the ground and you reap what you sow and all of that. That's all gardening, farming analogies, like symbolism, right? In Masonry, we say gather what is scattered. In Masonry, we call it that. Now, if you hear that, you might just think like, oh, Masons are talking about the god Osiris. Like, you know, the god Osiris got his body cut into 14 pieces and his body got scattered through Egypt. And then his wife, Isis, had to go gather the parts of his body. That's valid. But if you understand the symbolism of farming, like in Freemasonry, we use building as an analogy for the spiritual path. In alchemy, they use chemistry as an analogy for the spiritual path. So you also have farming and gardening and agriculture as an analogy. So when you're dealing with that analogy, farming, gardening, when we say to gather what is scattered, to scatter means to plant seeds, to throw seeds into the soil. And to gather means to you know, get the crop. So that's called reaping. It's to get what you have planted in the soil. Just pay attention to that. It's important. I know some people are gonna be like, yo, he's running around in circles with what he's saying, but I'm really not. So to gather what is scattered means to reap what you have sown, right? That's just natural law. So anyway, you have to understand that to grasp what the grand hand sign of distress is talking about in masonry. So I can't tell you the three motions, but I'll give you the clue. If you're a Mason, you'll figure it out. And even if you're not one, but you're an initiate of some other path, and you understand that what we're dealing with in the ancient mysteries is natural law, natural philosophy, you'll get it. So in if you're familiar with astrology, let me say that. We're not dealing with fortune telling and the pseudo shit. We're just talking about the astronomy of the ancients, which deals with symbolism. All right. You have 4 seasons. I'm pretty sure you know that. Winter, spring, summer, fall. So in the spring, you have the spring is the time where you would plant your seeds, right? So in ancient astronomical symbolism, every sign of the zodiac, right? And I'm pretty sure you know what the signs of the zodiac are. Every sign of the zodiac corresponds to a certain part of the body. For example, Aries corresponds to the head, right? Taurus corresponds to the throat. Cancer, which is the next sign, corresponds to the chest. Leo corresponds to the heart. And it goes on like that. So that Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac, the 12th sign, corresponds to your feet. The concept is that the ancients, meaning the initiates, the wise men, the wise women, they understood that man's body is a miniature replica, or woman's body, the human body, is a miniature replica of the whole universe. So the human body is a little universe. The same laws that apply and within yourself apply outside of you, the whole universe, right? So I know you know that. I'm preaching to the choir. Know thyself and you shall know the universe and the gods. This is an ancient maxim in the mystery schools. But just pay attention because it's important. So all of the 12 zodiac signs correspond to some part of the human body. So like I said, Aries corresponds to the head, Taurus to the throat. After Taurus, you have Gemini, which I didn't say Gemini before. I apologize. Gemini corresponds to the arms, right? Cancer corresponds to the chest. Leo corresponds to the heart. And it goes on and on, right? After Leo, you have Virgo. Virgo corresponds to the bowels, to the stomach. Libra corresponds to the waist, which is the mid part of the body. And Libra, that's the time when the sun goes into what we call a full equinox. It's one of the 2 times of the year where day and night is equal. I don't want to get too much into all of that stuff. But anyway, it's important that I mention this. So I say all of that to say this. I'm not going to reveal it, but you put it together. The time for planting, right? When we're dealing with farming or agriculture, whatever you want to call it, even botany, whatever. The springtime is when you plant your seeds. The summertime is when what you have planted grows. And now you can start reaping. And then you have the fall time, which is when you harvest. You store up things. Why would you store up what it is that grows? Because the winter is coming. And when the winter is coming, you know you can't grow nothing for the most part. Because there are things that are evergreen, as we would call it. Like in masonry, we have the sprig of acacia. The acacia tree is what we would call an evergreen tree, meaning it survives the death of the winter. So keep that in mind. But anyway, the point I'm making is that, generally speaking, you plant in the spring, right? You could grow certain things during the spring for sure. But you plant in the spring. The summer, generally speaking, is when your crops come up and things are growing, right? And then the fall is when the things that are growing, you harvest them to save them, because in the winter, typically nothing's gonna grow. Typically, don't make the exception to the rule like some people try to do. Oh, there's this thing that does grow in the winter, but generally speaking, you know that in the winter, nothing's really gonna grow. So the process of initiation in Freemasonry, as well as many of the ancient mystery schools, you see the same thing in the Bible, is symbolized by planting, growing, and harvesting. It's reaping what you sow. So this is very important. So with that being said, there are each of the 3 months of the spring. In the spring, you have, as far as the zodiac signs, you have Aries, you have Taurus, you have Gemini. Those are your 3 spring zodiac signs. Each of those corresponds to a certain part of your body. Aries corresponds to the head, Taurus to the throat, Gemini to your arms. When it comes to the summer, you have Cancer, you have Leo, and you have Virgo. Those are your 3 summer signs as far as the zodiac. So Cancer corresponds to the chest, Leo corresponds to the heart, Virgo corresponds to the bowels, right? And then with the full time, you have Libra. After Libra, you have Scorpio, and then you have Sagittarius. Those are your 3 full signs. So think about that. And then think about, if you're a Freemason, the 3 motions that I talked about with the grand healing sign of distress of a master mason. There's 3 motions that this is how you start it, but it's not the it's not the whole sign. You do this, and then you gotta go in 3 motions. And when you study the 3 parts of your body that those 3 motions correspond to, you'll be like, oh shit, I get it. It corresponds to planting, what that you have planted, how it grows, and then how you harvest it. You'll get it if you're a Mason, and if you understand the ancient mystery teachings. Just trust me, you'll get it. You'll be like, oh, I never thought of it like that. And also, like in our catechism, which we have a catechism for each of the 3 degrees of Masonry. Some people will call it a lecture or whatever the case may be. you'll see that in the catechism will say that, oh, the grand healing sign of distress alludes to the assassination of past master Hiram Abiff, which is like the Jesus Christ of Freemasonry or the Horus of Freemasonry. Hiram Abiff is like it's a character, it's not a real person. It's like the God of like the God man of Freemasonry, which as a Mason you symbolize. Every Mason knows this. We don't gotta hide it nowadays. But in the catechism, we'll say something along the lines of the grand healing sign of distress alludes to the assassination of Hiram Abiff. So, because Hiram Abiff was, or if we don't say that, we'll say that it alludes to the assassination of the 3 assassins of Hiram Abiff. Put it like that. Which is Jubilah, Jubilon, and Jubilum. Like the Hiram Abiff, if you know anything about Masonry, you know that Hiram Abiff was killed by 3 assassins, 3 ruffians. And the number 3 is always important in Freemasonry. For a reason. If you study Masonry, you'll know why. But anyway, Hiram Abiff gets killed by 3 assassins, Jubilah, Jubilo, Jubilum. So in the same way that Jubilah, Jubilo, and Jubilum kill Hiram Abiff, when vengeance comes upon them, they get killed in the same way. You reap what you sow. So when Jubilah, Jubilo, and Jubilum when they get killed, Jubilah gets his throat cut across. If you know the myth, Jubilah gets his throat cut across. And other things, but he gets his throat cut across. Jubilo gets his chest cut across and his heart taken out. And Jubilum gets cut in twain. His body gets cut in half and his bowels get torn out and burned to the ashes. And his ashes get scattered by the 4 winds of heaven so that no remembrance will remain of him. So those are 3 penalties. So the grand healing sign of distress of a master Mason alludes to those things. And it's not really a secret. If you're smart, you'll put it together, what I'm telling you. And then you'll put together what I was saying about the zodiac symbology. Because all of the ancient religions, if you don't notice, all of the ancient religions, whether that's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, all of it is based upon the study of the universe, natural philosophy, or you could call it astrology if you want. It's the study of the universe, how it moves, how it operates. And that's one of the secrets of Freemasonry, quote unquote, and it's the truth. So you can believe me or you cannot believe me. But if you know that what I'm saying is correct, go and study it. And it gets deep like that. But anyway, that's pretty much the basis of what I had to say. Yep. So anyway, that's all I had to say. With that, let me get out of here. Let me get back to eating my pasta. Made some pasta and some chicken cutlets. What type of pasta I made? I made fettuccine and Alfredo, which I don't like to eat, but I gotta eat that because the red sauce been bothering my stomach. You know, I got acid reflux and whatnot. So fettuccine, Alfredo, and then I made some chicken cutlets. So, yeah. And then some vegetables on the side. But anyway, with that being said, God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. Let me get out of here. I got to get out of here. Ciao. How do I get out of here? Yo, somebody help me to get out of here. How do I stop the video? Oh, yeah, okay. I get